Hi, everybody. All of the rumors of my demise, not true. Not true. Close, but not true. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Moohead Radio Special Sunday Edition. Actually, some of the issues that stop me from doing a podcast are the Indians are boring, dull, and predictable. The Cavaliers are in a straitjacket and can't do anything. And my lower back is like destroyed from a slip and fall accident that happened a couple of weeks ago here in my house. And sitting is not the easiest thing when you have a bad back. And on top of that, you tear both an oblique muscle and a hip flexor muscle, including the psoas muscle. Not a good thing. But I'm going to do a quick podcast here because I got some things I want to get off my mind. One, the Cleveland Indians, watching them day in, day out, watching every game, not saying about this without watching them. And there are a number of problems for the Cleveland Indians. And I'm going to share the big one that's staring them in the face right now is the fact that their pitching is just beyond the two good starters that we have who can't win every game they pitch. We've got nothing underneath them. I mean, you take away Kluber and Carrasco, and now you're going to bring back Salazar, who's never been anything except a thrower. And then you've got Tomlin, who's a waste of time, and Trevor Bauer, who's a lost cause. And I'll talk about those two players in just a minute. But the problem the Indians have is that they've got nothing below them in AAA. It's pretty sorry when the guy who leads the way for you at AAA is Sean Morimando. And Morimando is a guy who I know for a fact cannot be a major league pitcher. I mean, when you look at AAA numbers and he's giving up more hits than innings pitched, and that's true of every starting pitcher that they have down there. And I mean, that is absolutely whack. You've got Ryan Merritt. Yes, the Ryan Merritt giving up 97 hits over 93 innings. Morimando giving up 122 hits over 114 innings. This is a swing and miss league, folks. We've got Adam Plutko, who has given up 100 hits in 88 innings. And the best of them have a 3.5 earned run average. Plutko is at a 6 earned run average. Somebody named Jarrett Grube has given up 79 hits in 76 innings with almost a 5 earned run average. It's not a good thing. The starting rotation for the AAA Columbus Clippers, there's nothing that you're going to bring back up to the league, the major leagues. So you're not going to get any help from there. So you have to look at who you've got on your roster and you say, okay, here's the deal. Who do you like less? I know there's probably a different way or a more positive way of looking at it, but who do you like less? Is it Josh Tomlin or is it Trevor Bauer? And for me personally, everybody knows that I have a predilection to despise Trevor Bauer for a lot of reasons, but really it's Tomlin who's got to go first, because let's be honest about Tomlin. There's only one thing to like about him, and that's his competitive spirit. Beyond that, he doesn't have a major league fastball. If he doesn't have absolute perfect command of his breaking ball, he'll give up a ton of gopher balls. He has never pitched a full season without having to take either a protracted rest because his arm wasn't strong enough to make it through the season, or he gets injured. And the team doesn't win with him on the mound, plain and simple. You can't score enough runs to overcome the crooked numbers that he puts up. And I know all the excuses they've made for him because he is a competitor. You know, well, when he gives up home runs, they're solo shots. No, not anymore. There's a lot of 2-run, 3-run home runs that he's giving up. And it's all surrounding the fact that he really has two pitches. He has an 88-mile-an-hour fastball that he spots, and he's got a curveball. And if the curveball isn't going over the plate, then you're just going to sit on that 88-mile-an-hour fastball. And the other problem with him, unlike the guys the Indians are losing to against teams like the Oakland Athletics, there's no sink to the pitch for Josh Tomlin. He is a fly ball pitcher. And with a juiced ball, which isn't going away, folks, the juiced ball isn't going away. This is something that the Major League Baseball execs have integrated into the game instead of, your PEDs to increase the long ball. Pitchers like Josh Tomlin are like, no matter where they pitch, they're pitching in Colorado in thin air. He's just not a major league starting pitcher. So he's got to go. Now, as far as Bauer is concerned, I just found it interesting watching the, Major League Baseball's documentary about the 90s Indians, specifically what do they call it? The dynasty that wasn't. The loss in the 97 World Series to the Florida Marlins, in which we found out that great relevant piece of information that we've wanted to know all this time, that Jose Mesa was shaking off Mike Hargrove, who wanted an inside fastball at the critical juncture in the ninth inning. And instead, dumb Jose decided to throw the slider on the outside part of the plate, which resulted in a base hit, which ended up with first and third. Then they ended up loading the bases, and then ended up giving up the sac fly to tie the game that put the game into extra innings. But it was the shake off that made me really just kind of shake my head and say, wow, I mean, he must have shaken off the catcher who was getting the signal directly from the dugout from Hargrove countless times, and it looked like Bauer. And, you don't get anywhere. It's like Omar Vizquel said that Mesa choked in the ninth inning. It wasn't that his command was bad in the ninth inning. It's that he was Jose Mesa, and he believed, and he says so in the documentary, it's like, who was he to change my strategy and my game? And it's like, you were a failure as a starting pitcher, and you just started to become a decent relief pitcher. How dare you? These people are paying you, asshole. But there you have it. So Jose Mesa and Trevor Bauer suffer from the same disease, the I know better than you know disease. Now, Bauer stays with the team because he's younger than Tomlin and he has a better arm than Tomlin. But that's all. That's all we're talking about here. And I don't want Bauer on this team for a long time, but you've only got enough to add one starting pitcher, and he's not coming from your minor league system. So what that means is you're going to have to make a trade. And I have an idea, because I've watched the Indians for longer than most of the people who are watching this program. I go back all the way to 1966, 1967. When I was 9-10 years old, I've watched the Cleveland Indians through all of the interceding decades. One thing I can tell you about the Indians, when they like a player, they like a player. And it's to the exclusion of all logic and reasoning. Now, what I'm going to say is probably not going to go over particularly well, because my opinions often do not go over very well. But I believe there is an opportunity to get better if you need the fourth starter and a guy that you can basically trade away. And before you hit me over the head with something very sharp and hard, I'm going to say that in my mind, Jason Kipnis is overrated, okay? This is a player who, because he's Charlie Hustle guy, he's a guy who gets kudos. He's like Carlos Santana. How Carlos Santana has kept his entire career intact in Cleveland, I have no idea. He is the worst hitter with runners on base. He's the most patient hitter with nobody on base and the most impatient hitter with runners in scoring position. He hits into more double plays, pops out with more men in scoring position than any player that I've ever seen play for the Cleveland Indians. Thank God he is a free agent at the end of the year. Martin Luther King, free at last, free of Carlos Santana. Thank God Almighty, free at last. But we're not talking about Santana because he's not a tradable asset. We're talking about Jason Kipnis. Now, here's the thing about Kip. He can't put back-to-back years together. And it's interesting when you look at his career with the Cleveland Indians, it's very obvious when he's going to have a bad season because his body does not heal from injuries. Plain and simple. We'll go back to the very beginning. 2012 was his first big season, full season, 152 games, and he had a wonderful year. 14 home runs and non-juice ball, 76 runs batted in. He was a .257 hitter, but the fact is, for a second baseman, they were getting production out of him. He followed it up with playing in 149 games and having a 17 home run and 84 run batted in and .284 batting average in 2013. It looked like, for all the world, that he was going to be the guy. He was going to be the guy who, he was going to be our second baseman for a long, long time to come. 2014 hit, and then all of a sudden, the bottom fell out, all right? He only played in 129 games, which you're saying, well, that's 33 games missed, could have been worse, but that's not the way it plays out for Kipnis. The way it plays out for Kipnis is he injures something early in the season, and he continues to play, and he's no good. He drops down to a .240 average. His home run productivity goes down to 6. All right? We're talking about 6 home runs and 555 at-bats, all right, which is just unbelievable. That's not good. He comes back in 2015 and plays in 141 games. He only hits 9 home runs in 641 at-bats. And then the questions started being asked and the comparisons being made to Carlos Baerga. It's like, has this guy just fallen off the map? What's the story with him? He did in 2015 hit a 303. So he hit for average, but his power was gone. And everyone said, well, geez, what's happened to the guy was hitting 17 home runs and driving in 84. How does he drop to like 6 and 41 and 9 and 52 runs batted in? How does that happen? Well, 2016 comes around and he's playing in 156 games. He gets 688 plate appearances and he hits 23 home runs and drives in 82 runs and he hits a very respectable 275. And everyone's like, well, whatever it was, man, he's got his power back. And then all of a sudden there's this year and he blows monkey spunk because we know what the problem is here. And if we, okay, we just rewound the tape. Kipnis injured an oblique muscle a couple of years ago. You remember that. And that oblique muscle never completely healed. And that injury contributed to a loss of power when he was fully healed. And if he would just had taken the damn season off, he may have healed quicker. Instead, we had diminishing, productivity as far as runs batted in from that position. When he was fully healed in 2016, he comes back and has a big year. We know this year what happened with the shoulder surgery and all that, and how they rushed him without a prolonged stay at AAA and rushed him up to the big leagues. And what we end up with now is the injured Jason Kipnis once again. All right. 254 plate appearances. He's hit 8 home runs with a juiced ball. He's hitting a fantastic 232, and he's hurt again because whenever he's hurt, he gets a bunch of compensatory injuries as well. And what it points to is 1 good season, 2 bad seasons, 2 good seasons, 1 bad season, but it's always injury related. All right. Now he's going to be gone 3 to 4 weeks, and his season is basically lost because he's going to have to come back and go to AAA and get himself together down there. And it's about a month until he comes back. I'm tired, and the fact that he's not that good a second baseman. Let's be honest about Jason Kipnis. He, have a dirty uniform. Yes, I understand that he is a hustle player. He plays the game hard. I'm not criticizing him on that front. What I'm criticizing him for is that his range is not very good for a major league second baseman, and his arm is below average for a major league second baseman, and he does not turn the double play well, and very often is slow getting to the bag on the double play. And he doesn't have that footwork that good second basemen have. But he is a marketable asset. And he is a player who could help somebody in the big leagues who'd be willing to trade for him, if they're willing to put up with the myriad injuries that go with him. I would trade Jason Kipnis before people realize what a pattern this is with him, and I would get my 4th starting pitcher for a number of reasons. First of all, you got to have 4 starting pitchers and that have some degree of quality, and you need 3 for sure. The guy you're trading for is a number 3 starter, and Salazar is your number 4, and Bauer is your number 5. You can hope that Salazar will catch lightning in a bottle like Jared Wright did one season, but we're all running out of time with Salazar because he's much more a thrower than he is a pitcher, and he also has a history of arm trouble. And Bauer's just a mental midget. But you've got to have that 3rd strong, solid, steady. And you're not going to get a wipeout pitcher as your number 3. You need a solid, steady guy. What you need is Josh Tomlin throwing 93, 94 instead of 87, 88. All right? You need somebody who keeps you in games, who's an inning eater. Because what we have right now is a situation where our starting pitchers like Bauer, they're running up 100 pitches in 5 innings. And it's not so good. And I know you're going to talk about Clevenger. I think Clevenger is better than Bauer. All right. But he has problems in the same way, is that he nibbles. He needs to get confident. He also has shown the penchant to give up the long ball, but Clevenger at least has speed. He throws 93, 94, 95. I don't want to really see him throwing 95. If we could quiet him down, if Mickey Callaway could work with Clevenger to calm him down and keep him throwing around 93 with movement, he'd be much better off, because he's not a guy who's going to beat you consistently with an elevated fastball. He's not like Danny Salazar, who can throw 98 and get you out that way. But Clevenger, right now, as it stands, is your number 3 starter. So I'm trying to give, if you end up doing what I say and getting rid of Tomlin, you add 1 pitcher and you're where you need to be. The thing with Kipnis is you should be able to get a number 3 starter for him, and it shouldn't hurt the team too much. Let me explain why that is. Right now we have a situation where his injury has caused us to bring up Alex Gonzalez from the minor leagues. Now, not that I have anything against utility players, but utility players are not everyday players. And you have an ability in Cleveland to move an all-star player to their natural position if you trade Jason Kipnis. Let's not forget that Jose Ramirez is a second baseman by trade, not a third baseman. And we have Yandy Diaz at AAA. And I know what people will say. Well, he didn't prove himself. Like, fuck, he didn't prove himself. He's got nothing left to prove at AAA. The guy's hitting 325 down there. And he's exactly the kind of hitter that we need. We don't need power. We need people to occupy the bases. The idea of Yandy Diaz playing at third is not to have a big power hitting corner infielder. We need people who can get on base, guys who hit line drives, because the biggest problem with the Cleveland Indians, outside of the lack of depth in their starting pitching, is the fact that they've bought into this goofy long ball strategy, and our best hitters have fallen prey to it. And I'm going to start with our shortstop. Francisco Lindor is a line drive hitter, but not in his mind anymore. His swing looks more like Russell Branyan right now. It's like he's taking lessons from Carlos Santana. Everything he's hitting is in the air, popping it up. He's got an obvious uppercut swing. He got off to a very hot start hitting the long ball, and then he was bitten by the bug. And he can't stop doing it. And it's killing the team. And the reason it's killing the team is that it's forcing a young player like Bradley Zimmer to hit in the leadoff position when he's got no place and no business batting leadoff. Bradley Zimmer's not a leadoff hitter. He's fast, yeah. He's shown a willingness to run up counts and take some walks, yes. But he's a rookie, for God's sakes, and that's not the position he's going to hit in for the rest of his career. And it's foolish moving him up that way. Lindor is better off hitting the leadoff position if you could convince him once and for all to stop the uppercut bullshit. You know, to me, it's a simple enough thing. If you load the top of the lineup with guys who are line drive hitters, and then you let the boppers come up, you have a chance to score some runs. What that means is that Lindor should lead off, is that Yandy Diaz should be in the 2-hole, that Brantley be in the 3-hole. You've got 3 guys there and not one who should be really worrying too much about hitting the long ball. You should be hitting line drives, making clean contact. You should be going to the opposite field, because every fucking pitcher that they're throwing at the Indians is just throwing a changeup on the outside part of the plate. And the idiot Indians and Tyvon Berkeley and his stupid-ass coaching scheme are getting guys to try to pull changeups that are down and away. And that's why you're seeing so many ground balls and weak ground balls, Sammy Sosa-esque late in his career, ground balls to second base from the Indians' power hitters. You can pitch around Edwin Encarnacion when you know that Carlos Santana will come up and swing at every off-speed pitch down and away and will try to pull it. And you just run a shift and you put 3 men on the right side of the infield and he'll ground into a fucking double play. That is what's killing this team. All of our guys want to be power hitters. Too many are just being impatient. They're playing for themselves and their contracts and not playing for their team. I say let's load up the top 3. That way, if we have 3 guys, and I do believe that Yandy Diaz can hit 270, 280 in the bigs, and I think that he can hit line drives and hit doubles. There's nothing that makes me think that he can't do it, because they've run out of, I mean, you say they got options. No, they've really got one option. Either trade him to a team that will play him or play him yourself, because he's hit at every level and he's been solid 300 at every level. And you know that Mejia will be up in AAA next year, and we can wait. We can wait a year. You know, we get rid of Carlos Santana. That's fine. We don't have to worry about that. Gomes is another guy. You know, it's like the Yan Gomes I remember had power to right center field, yet he's up there swinging like fucking blind man's bluff. I mean, pin the tail on the donkey. And every off-speed pitch that starts up down in the zone and goes into the dirt, he's just winding up and taking these crazy-ass swings at. And the same thing with Perez. Roberto Perez can't hit to save his soul, but it's like these guys, what power they have is to right center field, and they're trying to pull the ball. So we're getting nothing offensively from our catchers. Gomes is wonderful defensively and throws runners out, but he strands runners like boats strand people on Gilligan's Island. It doesn't work. Now, these little suggestions don't turn the Cleveland Indians into a World Series team. But it starts, if we're going to get a third pitcher and move Kipnis, move Diaz up, move Ramirez over to second. Then my next thing is to get rid of Tyvon Berkelio. Get rid of him. Because ever since this guy came on board, we are a swing and miss machine with men in scoring position, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the approach. If it's not his approach, the players sure as hell aren't listening to his approach. And if it is his approach, he should be gone. We need people to start moving the line. When you can only score 0, 1, 2, or 3 runs a game, and it's happening consistently against second-rate, rookie, bad career pitchers, it's because they're not even forced to be in the strike zone against you. They can just throw the ball out of the zone, and you're going to help them out. You expand the strike zone, and that's what all of our hitters in the middle of the lineup are doing. And we can't just get rid of these people, but we can put a voice in the dugout that tells them to go about it differently. And if they don't like it, they can pound salt, and we'll get rid of them during the offseason. The Indians have far too much ability and talent to be shut down offensively the way they've been, but it's bad approach. So there you have it. That's what I would do. Now, there are some downsides. Yandy Diaz is not as good a fielder as Jose Ramirez at third base, but Alex Gonzalez, from what I've seen, doesn't have a very accurate arm, and it's not like he is a knockdown, drag-out kind of guy, and he's a fill-in guy at that, but as an everyday player, no way. No way. You put him in the bottom of the order along with Gomes and those people and forget about it. Now, what I will say is this: Encarnacion is your fourth hitter, and they've had to move Santana out of the fifth position because he was stranding so many runners. You know, now you've got Naquin back, he of the hole in the upper strike zone, and we're going to see if that persists. You know, Zimmer should be in a position where he can drive in runs. If you've got 3 guys at the top of the lineup who have a good ability to get on base, you really need Bradley Zimmer in a place where he can drive in runs, not leading off at the top of the order. So, you know, you look at him as a 5th, 6th hitter. What else can I tell you? It's not like there's a ton that the Indians can do right now, but they can make that valuable trade. And I'm willing to say goodbye to Jason Kipnis because he can't stay healthy. And, you know, it reminds me of Grady Sizemore, guys who play the game hard in general. And I have that worry about Bradley Zimmer too, all this diving and you know, and sliding in and diving into bases. You know, you can wreck your body at a young age that comes back to haunt you. And Grady Sizemore started out with smaller injuries that became bigger injuries. And I think Kipnis is right at the point right now. He's not a kid. He's had enough injuries. The next one could be the one that really starts a demise in him. And the shoulder might have already created a demise in him. Everybody was so worried about Michael Brantley's shoulder after surgery. Well, maybe there should be more people that were worried about Jason Kipnis after he went through shoulder problems. Be that as it may, he's 30 years old, and it doesn't get better, but he's still a tradable asset now. Let's move him. What do you guys think? You can leave comments on YouTube. You can leave comments in the chat room at mooheadradio.com. Tell me if any of this makes sense to you. Thanks a lot for tuning in. And if I had something to say about the Cavaliers, I would, except just what I said before. Isn't it interesting that Melo now is saying, you know, I really do want to go to Houston. You know, it's like I really encouraging the Knicks in Houston to continue trade talks, and Cleveland's completely out of the conversation. I thought Melo wanted to play with LeBron. Maybe Melo knows something about where LeBron might be in another year and a half, and maybe he knows he doesn't figure into it. Whatever it is, it's a given that either through buyout, and this is my way of thinking, the league's way of telling everybody, Melo is going to play in Houston. That's how it's gonna pan out. If a trade doesn't happen, which they can put a gun to the head of the Knicks if they promise the Knicks something good, and there's a half-ass trade that somehow the Knicks managed to give him away to the Houston Rockets, or if there's a buyout and Melo immediately jumps out and says, yeah, Rockets, you know that it's planned. So I'm not bitching about that anymore because it's fixed. It's scripted. It's business as usual in the NBA. Nothing's happening for the Cavaliers, nor after everything that has, the league believes that nothing more should happen with the Cavaliers. We're trying to even things out, you see, in the East. Thanks for tuning in. Be back whenever I have something else to say. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.